Hey guys, Crypto Sunday, and we've had another fairly monster week. I'm up 10.5%. I'm not sure, I think depends what exchange you're using, but this looks a little bit of a premium on what it probably is, but we'll go with it for the sake of consistency. So yeah, about 10.5% up. That's £54,000. Probably more like 50, but there you go. And yeah, it's suddenly turned into altcoin week. So we've had some sort of fairly big outperformers, which I will come back to. But just having a look at the coin shares report, we're sort of getting fairly consistent, as you can see, sort of 3 weeks all within a few $1 million of each other, and some slightly smaller weeks, but yeah, getting some fairly consistent inflows. Had $2.2 billion of tracked inflows this week. New all-time high on AUM, partly because of price going up, of course, but partly because of inflows. Looking at it by coin, you can see Ethereum has come to life. 646 million on Ethereum inflows, which is sort of a good part, over a third of the year-to-date flows. So certainly has come to life. 1.48 billion on Bitcoin. Outflow out of the multi-asset, which is a little bit strange considering sort of everything else is up. 24 million, just under, on Solana, which is pretty good. Year to date was 97, so again, quarter of that. Pretty solid. A little bit into Litecoin, reasonable amount into XRP. I did sell my XRP, obviously a little bit too soon. I sort of was not really super bullish about the potential return for them. It was sort of a $100 billion fully diluted market cap, but it sailed past that. So yeah, selling too soon. That's generally what I end up doing, if not too late. Short Bitcoin, $48 million into short Bitcoin. I'm not sure that will have gone particularly well in the last week, but yeah, good for them. 3.4 million into Cardano as well, with only 90 million in total AUM. It's sort of, Cardano was spurred into life. Again, one that I sold a reasonable while ago, but I did put that into, obviously other assets which are doing okay, but I would have thought underperforming Cardano. And yeah, 4.7 million into other coins. And looking at by country, very much a mixed bag. 10 million outflow out of Brazil, but 18 million into Australia. Inflows into Canada and Hong Kong, Switzerland. 58 million out of Sweden, though. That's quite a big outflow. And obviously 2.2 billion in total into the US. So other people sort of still not entirely embracing it. And we're obviously on for a very strong week in tomorrow's report, because we've had a week of pretty much nothing but solid inflows, a little bit out of grayscale, but yeah, Fidelity sort of getting a reasonable amount, sort of $600-700 million. ARK even had a fairly big day, 267 million, and no outflows, so that's pretty good. That's about 10% of their AUM. But BlackRock obviously is the big consistent inflower. Even when others are withdrawing, they get a zero, and then 89, 216, 600 million days in a row, and a 500 million. So yeah, people piling into BlackRock. They've got 31 billion of I think this is of inflows, and the fund is worth more than that now due to price appreciation. So people are very happy. And when I say Ethereum is spurring into life, it looks like this is not in the US. The US is sort of missing out maybe on some of these flows by not allowing staking, which the European funds do. People sort of moaning that the Europeans are not embracing it, but they certainly are embracing it on sort of these types of products. You've got I think Solana, even Aptos ETFs in Europe that all allow staking, so you could see that as quite progressive. And yeah, considering sort of the US funds looking like for the week is a net outflow. You had 91 million on the Friday, but the rest of the week has been outflows. Then I guess all of this must be going into possibly some Canadian or sort of rest of the world, but I would expect it's the staking European ETFs. So well done for them. But yeah, other than that, might be getting the start of some BlackRock inflows, but yeah, I think if you know sort of any reasonable amount about crypto, you don't want to hold an Ethereum ETF with no staking. So unfortunate. We obviously can't go a week without talking about Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy. They've obviously got their large plan to issue $42 billion of shares and convertible debt, which ends up as shares, and buy Bitcoin. And they're sort of going fairly quick guns about that. They've bought $4.6 billion of Bitcoin. 51,780, although that was sort of at 88,600. So considering we're now at 98,000, it already looks like a good buy. And they now have 331,200 at an average cost. Gotta say that is quite nice, of just under 50,000. So just almost touching 100% profit on the portfolio, which you have to say is pretty solid. Although, obviously, it's not a yield, as he keeps calling it, and I will keep disputing it. But yeah, well done. And clearly inspired by MicroStrategy in a big way, Marathon Digital are continuing to issue convertible debt similar to MicroStrategy to buy Bitcoin. I kind of thought this was I don't know, maybe a one-off, but yeah, they're carrying on. They issued sort of what was originally going to be 700 million in zero coupon convertible notes, and they've upsized that to 850 million with another option to buy another 150 million. It looks like this did go through at around 850 million, and they expect to spend almost all of that on Bitcoin. I did say before, personally, I'm not a big fan of the miners that I'm into sort of pursuing this strategy, because I'm not really sure whether the premium can sort of carry on with someone like MicroStrategy forever. Their sort of, current market cap, I think, is about 3 times. It did go to 3.5 times the value of their Bitcoin during the week, and just because there's ridiculous demand, it seems, for these convertible notes. I believe during the week we saw that 25% of their offering had been bought by Allianz, the German insurance company. So maybe there's big people out there that desperately want a allocation to Bitcoin, but they don't really want to buy the stocks. They can't buy Bitcoin, but they have to buy a certain amount of, you'll call it fixed income. So they're deciding to sort of coyly spend that on MicroStrategy and maybe Marathon convertible bonds. As I say, you can't really call it fixed income if it's zero coupon. Or the best case scenario is you get your money back if Bitcoin sort of doesn't really go anywhere. So it's not really fixed income, but I suspect that could be the case. People who sort of have like billions and billions of dollars that they have to, as far as their company rules go, invest in fixed income, and so they're deciding to bend the rules a little bit and buy these. So that's why there's sort of seemingly unlimited demand. So that now means Marathon hold 27,562 Bitcoin, and expected to grow. But as I say, I wouldn't be that keen on any of my sort of Riot, CleanSpark, or Hive to pursuing this sort of strategy, because I just think it becomes, a bet on your sort of premium increasing rather than a multiple of profit that you're making on mining Bitcoin. It's sort of, you become what I originally thought MicroStrategy would be, essentially a 1x ETF on Bitcoin, which is not what I would be buying the miners for. Obviously, it hasn't ended up like that, and they've effectively sort of become like 3x leveraged Bitcoin. But yeah, I would rather sort of the market cap be based on, a multiple of profit mining Bitcoin than, just saying you've got earnings per share because the Bitcoin on your balance sheet has gone up, which I've gone over many times, but there you go. Starting to sound too good to be true almost with Donald Trump, yet another sort of pro-crypto large appointment, the Treasury Secretary, replacing Janet Yellen, assuming that she's sort of happy to step down. Trump's made his nomination of Scott Bessent, and the Senate has to confirm him, but you would think sort of with majority Republican Senate, there's going to be no issue there. And yeah, he's sort of a big fan of digital assets and has sort of made a number of comments. Said he's been very excited about Trump's embrace of crypto and thinks it fits very well with the Republican Party and the ethos of it. Crypto is about freedom and the crypto economy is here to stay, Mr. Bessent said. So, yeah, that was in an interview with Fox in July, so well before the election, well before a lot of this was really being talked about. And yeah, he says crypto's bringing in young people who have not participated in markets before. So yeah, there was other people sort of, tipped for this and seen as possibilities, but yeah, he seemed to be favourite. And yeah, it's another positive move, it looks like. So we've still got chairperson of the SEC to be chosen, and sort of one or two other key positions. But yeah, another one chalked up. And another one of Trump's policies we're sort of not really sure he's going to go through or sort of what shape it would take. Clearly the Financial Times, although this is an opinion piece, not necessarily the views of everyone at the Financial Times, but this chap is sort of not particularly keen, although I thought this was going to be a sort of super harsh hit piece. He's not really saying that Bitcoin itself is bad, just that this idea sort of wouldn't be particularly good. So July, Cynthia Lummis proposed the idea of a strategic Bitcoin reserve, which her sort of proposal of this was rather extreme. They were talking about buying 200,000 Bitcoin a year for 5 years to sort of get them, would be to a total of more than a million, because they currently hold 200,000, assuming that they're sort of happy to keep that, considering it was sort of from a hack partly and from Silk Road, so it's sort of criminally seized, or seized from criminals, depending on which way you see it. I do think people are missing that strategic Bitcoin reserve could essentially just be keeping what they've got. I mean, Trump did almost say this. He said they would move to, if he was elected, he would move to not sell the 200,000 that they've got. And he said he would create a strategic Bitcoin reserve, put those two together. And it could just be using what we've got as a strategic Bitcoin reserve and not buying any, which I would still see as tremendously positive. But the more you start getting sort of discussions of this buying a million Bitcoin, then people may be disappointed by just holding what they've got. So yeah, they're talking about sort of holding this, putting it in contract that it couldn't be sold until 2045, which again seems sort of incredibly long term and sort of bullish Bitcoin. I think it's probably a little bit dangerous to get people too excited about that sort of idea. And they're also talking about sort of how they would pay for this, considering they don't sort of run a surplus. The sort of sovereign wealth fund type nations, Norway and the Middle East and places like that, all run a sort of significant trade surplus, so they can put their excess dollars, excess money into generally stocks, but they could sort of potentially put it into Bitcoin. The US obviously doesn't, they run quite a large deficit, so they would need some way on getting some extra money. And one way is seen as revaluing the gold on their balance sheet, if you like. Their sort of gold they hold supposedly 8,000, I think it's 8,100 tons. So that's rather a lot of ounces, and I believe they sort of essentially call it on the balance sheet at something like $42 an ounce. So basically holding it at cost, and yeah, that allows them, or restricts them from sort of using that as a balance sheet item to then issue debt on and leverage and sort of do all sorts. Supposedly, the Fed can simply mark all of the current gold to the market price, and that sort of creates money, essentially, which is a little bit fake, really, and then remit the difference to the Treasury, and the Treasury could use that to buy Bitcoin. There's sort of not really a huge net loss to that if they're able to do it. It just means they still hold their 8,100 tons, and it's at the current market price, and they would also hold an enormous amount of Bitcoin. Yeah, a little bit strange. As I say, he's not just, to be fair, slating Bitcoin itself. He says it's long past time that Bitcoin is, to say that Bitcoin can't serve as money. It does. Analysis of the public ledger in September shows that holdings serve as a good way to move money offshore and in various countries. Activity in Brazil increased during inflation, and in Venezuela due to sanctions. So yeah, it has sort of various uses as money, which people do with gold and sort of various things as well. So that shouldn't be a criticism of Bitcoin. But he says, the reserve would sort of restrict them from enacting various policies. They wouldn't want to exercise monetary sovereignty by limiting Bitcoin mining or trading if it sort of became problematic, because that would drop the price, and the price of their own treasury would, not necessarily immediately collapse. They don't exactly have a super dominant position on mining. They have quite a bit, but yeah, not sure it would collapse. But yeah, so he's calling it is not a resilient strategy for the US, it's a resilient strategy for the hodlers. So obviously every Bitcoin holder is very, very keen for this to go ahead, but it essentially means it's putting it more into government, not necessarily control, but governments relying on it, and just sees that as one, dangerous, and two, sort of getting away from the original ethos of crypto being sort of outside of the traditional system. Speaking of mining, though, we're seeing even more hash rate being added, which we sort of kind of know about. There's quite a few public miners that are still expanding, Riot, for example, and CleanSpark. So sort of probably should have seen this coming, but sort of hit new all-time highs. This is the 7-day average, so it's a little bit smoothed out. If you see the sort of 1 day, it's just all over the place. So I like to use the 7-day average. You can look at the 30-day, but it's just even more zoomed out and probably not reflecting recent changes quite as much. But we sort of reached 776 exahash, so that's an incredible new high, and we'll be pushing up difficulty as we can see. Difficulty obviously want on the 1 day because it doesn't change for weeks at a time, and yeah, we've got up to over 100 on the difficulty, up to 102 now. So since the election, basically, election day, it changed. Was up from sort of 95 and the low 90s. So I was sort of fairly happy with the low 90s because it was, sort of almost it was in the high 80s sort of back in April, May time. So low 90s still in October, or 88 in October. Didn't seem all that bad, and I thought with the rise in price should be sort of reasonably profitable for miners, but yeah, they have to keep expanding. So we pushed from 88 to 102 now, and yeah, it's a bit like gold mining. Your sort of price increases, but your costs increase as well, and you don't get that sort of leveraged Bitcoin that I think everyone was imagining the miners to be. So yeah, it's not going all that well yet, but maybe sort of we might get a bit of stark rise in the Bitcoin price without this rise in difficulty, and might finally get some sort of decent action out of the miners. So looking at the portfolio for the week, we've had as I say, a fair push on the altcoins, the sort of smaller cap altcoins outperforming now. Bitcoin is up 8.4%, Solana up 7%, and Ethereum up 8.7%, all in a sort of a tight little band, and then it starts to go crazy. So Chainlink up 21%, Gala suddenly burst into life, up 35%. That's sort of largely in the last day. Power Ledger up 17%, Audius up 20%, ICP Internet Computer up 19%, Quant loving a bit of sort of CBDC action, and sort of I think going up partly with Ripple and Stellar Lumens, one of the sort of coins that I used to hold, sort of rocketing up. I think still well below where I sold, but there you go. Yeah, that's up. Quant is up 22%. Basic Attention Token up 29%. Matic, sort of been moaning about Matic for quite a while. That's up 36% for the week. And VeChain, which I believe is the top performer, up 46%. So, yeah, some others are doing even better than that, which I don't own. But yeah, I was pretty happy with that basically. Oh yeah, just looking at XRP, not that I hold it anymore, but it is up 34% for the week. And as I say, Stellar Lumens up 184% for the week. So pick your random altcoin and see how well it's doing. So who knows how far this run can go? I'm quite keen to take a little bit more profit, probably on Bitcoin because it's sort of run the most, I would say, so far, even if we've had a decent altcoin week. But yeah, sort of planning on maybe if we get sort of tick over above 100,000 on Bitcoin, might take another 0.25 Bitcoin maybe. If we sort of surge past it, then maybe half a Bitcoin and maybe some altcoins, but we'll have to see. Keen to sort of lock in some more gains because I always end up sort of not taking enough. I sell some early and then don't take enough when things actually go high. So there we go. So leave your thoughts in the comments below and like and subscribe. See you soon.